This entitled kid thinks he can boss everyone at this childcare around, even this poor childcare worker. But when his entitled mother gets involved, that's when things get crazy. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. I work for an inventory company. We literally go to businesses, count their inventory, update their computer systems, and then my boss compiles a bunch of statistics about their inventory to discuss with management about how they're doing. Some of my boss's biggest business comes from buy sells, or an inventory that is being done before the sale of a business, in order to calculate the value of the current inventory, and therefore how much the buyer has to pay the seller for it. This can be complicated, because what counts as a good piece of inventory changes depending on the agreement the two companies reach. We're usually brought in as a neutral third party. My boss has been doing this stuff for 40 years and has way too many stories of sellers trying to get him to inflate their inventory or buyers trying to get him to devalue it. So a few years ago, a client, who will henceforth be known as buyer, contacts my boss about doing an inventory for a business he wants to buy. My boss had worked for many years with buyer's father, who had recently retired and passed down the business to buyer. My boss doesn't think very highly of buyer, but he is not going to turn away business just because he thinks someone is an entitled idiot. My boss informs buyer that he will need to see the sale agreement at least a week before the inventory so he can review it. He is not a lawyer, but he has enough experience with these things that he can pass through the language on his own. And if there's something weird, the week gives him enough time to get an actual lawyer to look over the agreement or speak to the buyer or seller to go over things. Buyer agrees to send it as soon as the lawyers finish fleshing it out. He doesn't. For the next 3 months, my boss is all but begging buyer to send him the sale agreement. Buyer apparently has the attention span of a 3-year-old learning trigonometry, because he agrees every time, and then a thing came up and he forgot. He was even desperate enough to contact the seller to try and get the details, but the seller refused to even take the calls. The day before the inventory, my boss finally calls buyer and says that if he doesn't have the agreement before 10 PM that night, he was going to cancel the inventory. Buyer finally faxes the agreement over so my boss can get a handle on what exactly the buyer has agreed to buy from the seller. So by the time the date of the inventory arrives, my boss is starting the day severely annoyed because he had been up all night going over the sale agreement. Side note, because my boss is a freaking wonderful human, he often meets a group of us so we can carpool to the jobs together, which meant that I had a front row seat to the horror that was my boss's welcome by the buyer the day of the inventory.
Hey boss, thanks for coming out today. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's what you're paying me for. Hey, before we get started with anything, I wanted to talk to you and the seller about the sale agreement. I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page before we get started.
Oh, no need. We've got it all figured out.
I'm sorry?
Well, the seller is really hurting financially, and he has to take care of his sick father and his family. So I'm just gonna buy the whole inventory.
You're just going to buy everything?
Yeah, that should make this simpler for you, right? You can just do the inventory like normal.
Okay, you realize you don't need to do that, right? Your agreement states that you only have to pay him for inventory that is below a certain age and in good condition.
It's not a big deal if there's a few bad pieces here and there. It'll be a lot faster if you guys just count everything.
I need to make sure you understand. Just from the casual look around I've had so far, I can tell you that a good portion of what I'm seeing is outdated and in some cases completely destroyed.
You won't be able to sell them. Well, I've had a look around too, and I think you're exaggerating. Besides, whatever I can't sell here, I can always post up on eBay. There'll always be somebody who wants this old stuff. So I want you to count everything.
I understand that, and if you tell me you want to count everything, that's what we'll do, but I really think that...
Look, I'm gonna pay you the same, so what the heck do you care what I buy? You may know inventory, but you can't see the big picture here. I want everything counted and added into the inventory. It's not like you guys have to work any harder.
Okay, we're going to need to reword our contract. The current one specifies that we're doing the inventory according to the sales agreement you've reached. If you want us to count everything, then I just
said I wanted everything counted. I'm not paying a lawyer for you to change one line of a contract. Why are you making such a big deal out of something like this? Just count the stuff.
Now, as I previously said, my boss has been doing this job for over 40 years. years, and he'd already walked in pretty annoyed by the buyer, and buyer has now been messing around with the sales agreement for months, forcing my boss to do a week's worth of planning in one night. And now not only did he want to completely ignore all the work my boss had put in, but buyer also did it with a ridiculous amount of snark and attitude, while my boss was trying to make sure buyer didn't end up paying for junk. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. My boss gives buyer his giant customer service smile, which has always scarily reminded me of the Cringe, and says, "Alright then, you want us to count everything? We'll count everything." And then he came back to our crew and announced, "Everyone, choose a section. We're counting everything. Broken piece, counted. A piece with a handwritten or ripped up part number, counted. A kit with pieces missing, counted. Pieces so old they have become obsolete, counted." We counted each and every piece in the business, no matter what the condition of the part. A couple of months later, one of the crew asked my boss about what happened, and he burst out laughing. The buyer finally figured out, after about a month of nonsense and hearing his employees gripe, that about 30% of the inventory he'd bought was simply garbage, for a total of approximately $500,000 USD. My boss lost him as a client. He regrets absolutely nothing. What I want to know is, how does somebody that stupid acquire $500,000 to blow on something like that? Well, technically they must have acquired multiple $1,000,000 to be able to blow just the $500,000. It is possible that they went into debt to purchase the inventory, but that's even worse. It means they're just gonna have a huge loss that they can't pay back, as they can't sell the inventory. But if you're going to be that arrogant and not listen to the professional, yeah, it's gonna cost you $500,000. For about 3 years, I worked at a large chain store in the electronics department. It was my first job out of high school, and thanks to a combination of me being a tech nerd and a couple of very kind co-workers, I picked up on not only the job, but our products quite easily. I knew what I was doing within the month, and before the year was over, I was a contender to take the department manager's position when he left. I ended up not getting the position, but that's a story for another time. Fast forward 2 years, and the company restructured its stores. Basically, instead of working in a particular department, now you do one job across the entire store. So now you have people who are specialized in, say, fashion, forced to do price changes all over the store in departments they don't know. No one likes the changes. And over the next few months, over half the staff quits, including the entire electronics team. Except me. I am now the only person in the entire store with the knowledge and experience to run electronics. Management included, as many of them were replaced during the restructuring. As one of our highest shrink, theft, and highest profit departments, they know they're done without me, so they bend over backwards to make sure I stay on. If I'm at work, I'm in electronics, and if I want to do something, no one questions it. They know I'm the only one who knows what I'm doing. I'm the only person in the store with this privilege. Now, onto the malicious compliance. After about a year, my manager, who worked out the deal with me to let me run electronics, leaves, and a new manager from after the restructuring takes over. Technically, my job title is Customer Experience Specialist. Basically, all I'm supposed to do is customer service. Stock, different team. Price changes, layout changes, different teams. Unofficially, I do it all for electronics, because the few times other people did it, I spent my entire next shift cleaning up their mistakes. And I made sure management knew it. New manager finds me arranging a section one day, preparing for some new stock to come in with the release of the new iPhone, cases for it and such. He throws a fit and tells me I'm not supposed to be doing that. It's not my job. At first I try explaining why I'm taking care of it, but he doesn't want to listen. I kind of just ignore him, try to placate him until he wanders off, then go back to my work. Apparently he sees this, because the next day he writes me up. Fine. Don't want me doing something beyond my job? So be it. I've been working here too long to care. For the next 3 weeks or so, I do nothing except customer service. No customers in the department. I'm stood behind the till being paid to do nothing. I watch as the shelves empty, with no one stocking them or correcting for the items getting stolen. Our back room is overflowing with electronic stuff. That can't go out because the new shelf layouts haven't been done. Everyone just thought I would do it. I didn't. A month goes by and management is freaking out. Our profits are way down. The back room is a mess. The shelves are barren. What's going on? I'm sipping my drink, stood behind my till. Finally, they realize what happened. The manager that started it all is quietly shuffled into the back room, and I get a new one who tries to work out a new deal with me. The store-wide inventory is coming up in 2 months, and it's going to be a disaster unless I step in and save them. I hand in my 2-week notice. I've been applying for other jobs during my hiatus, and I got hired by a cell phone company who operates the cell phone kiosk for my company. I request to be put in my store. The request is granted. Now here I am, watching from behind my kiosk as electronics goes down in flames. Profits are through the floor, and the inventory check was the worst I had ever heard of. As a result, the store's budget is cut. I told them when I gave them my notice to have me train someone, but they didn't have the hours to spare. They really don't have the hours now. A manager can make or break a business. A good manager, especially a new one who's coming into a business that they haven't been in, is going to actually talk to the workers and ask them how things have been running. If you come in with the philosophy that, well, here's the rules and here's how it's all supposed to work, without actually watching things on the ground floor, that's a recipe for disaster. And for a business, it means you're going to lose profits. I used to work at an after-school care, so once the kids in my primary school, elementary school, had finished school for the day at around 3-ish, about 60 to 70 kids would then come over to our building on campus and chill out until their parents came to pick them up around 5:45 p.m. We would give them afternoon tea and then watch over them as they pretty much just play games and do arts and crafts and such. A lot of the kids that we looked after were full-time kids, meaning that we had them 5 days a week, and most, if not all, of the holidays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, meaning that all in all, I'm spending a lot of time with other people's kids as a sort of pseudo-guardian, parent/role model. So using manners and generally good behavior is extremely important to me, as it helps to inform the rest of their lives. During my time here, I had an interesting run-in with an entitled parent and their equally, if not more entitled son. Bear in mind that this all happened at least 4 years ago, so the details might be a bit hazy, but such an obvious lack of respect from both parents and children made this encounter stay in my mind. Me playing with a soccer ball in the school hall with a few other kids. EK comes up to me and grabs my shirt.
Give me your ball.
Sorry man, we're playing with it now, points at the other kids, but you can jump in the game if you want.
I said give me the ball.
Sorry kid, not with an attitude like that. However, if you want to join in the game with us, by all means.
You know I'm your boss, right?
Excuse me?
Give me the ball now or I'll have you fired.
Flabbergasted at such a blatantly rude attempt to intimidate me. Once again, no deal, but thanks for playing. EK storms off, and I think nothing of it until later closer to home time. EP joins the battle and confronts me.
Why did you steal the ball of my son? What the heck were you thinking?
Oh, is that what he told you? No, I was already playing a game with a group of kids when he demanded that I give him the ball we were playing with. Now, had he asked nicely and used his manners, I would have considered it and I would have started a different game. However, I don't reward disrespect and rudeness here.
He doesn't have to use his manners. You're getting paid to do whatever you have to keep him happy. You've ruined his day and mine. I hope you're happy. I'm going to have a word with your supervisor. You're not fit to look after children.
At this point, I'm pretty incensed about being told I'm not fit to look after children, so I go off on this lady. Me? Listen lady, polite mode slightly turned off. I don't reward bad behavior. If you don't like how I do things here, then by all means, there is a fine after school establishment up the road that will be more than happy to accommodate you and your family. Bear in mind, no one would put up with such rude behavior.
How dare you? We've been here for years. You can't talk to me like that.
Storms off and starts talking to the head supervisor. Head supervisor, a very fair, kind but firm lady, doesn't have a bar of it, though as this isn't the first time EK has been acting up, HS calmly explains to EP that she supports my decision, that if they indeed do have a problem, then they should try the other after school care program up the road. We had a waiting list of about 30 already kids, so replacing them wouldn't be an issue. EP, after finding out that there was a higher chance of being kicked out of the program rather than me being fired, stormed out of the office with EK in tow. This wasn't my first battle with crappy parents, and it certainly wasn't my last. I'm glad I didn't get fired as well. The expectations that some parents have of after-school care and holiday care workers is a bit ridiculous. It's not like it's one carer per child. Depending on where you are, different regulations and policies can shift the ratio, but a lot of parents feel entitled as if each carer can spend 100% attention on their child. And for the kid to think that he's the boss, the kid probably really didn't want to go, so the parents were like, it'll be great. You're the boss there, and you can tell them whatever you want to do, and they have to do it. So the kid's expectations were probably really high, as if he's the boss, he can do whatever he wants. And when he came home and complained and he didn't want to go back, then that's when the parent had to step in. Maybe, just maybe, instead of trying to give your child whatever they want, perhaps you should set their expectations to be a little different, because when they grow up and enter the real world, they're gonna have a bad time.
Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.